during that match. And during the match, it was just like butterflies the entire time. Even when we're into the match, I was still like, oh my God, is this really happening? Is this a rib? Like, is someone just going to roll someone else up? And like, they were messing with us. But you know, we're going for our stage dive finish. And, you know, Davey Boy grabs Glenn's foot. He goes down. Owen backdrops me. Owen goes to flip me over to put me in a sharpshooter. And I just hear, because back then when you did run-ins, they didn't hit the people's music like they do now.
Yeah.
So I just knew Stone Cold was, I couldn't see him, but I knew he was there by the reaction of the crowd. I'm getting goosebumps telling you, because I literally laying in the ring got goosebumps. And even Owen didn't have to. I'm like, I looked up at Owen, I go, he's there, and boom, and I pushed him off into the stunner. And then the video's the best to me because I sit there and I look up around like, oh crap, and then I go, well, I might as well cover him.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. It was just, yeah, it was so hot. It was scary, and you know, Steve was so great back then. It was amazing.
And we are back for another casual conversation with the classic. Ladies and gentlemen, I got another special guest. You guys know I love doing these interviews where I get to talk to the people I watched as a child. And here's someone else. It's none other than Chaz Warrington, also known as Mosh from the Headbangers. How are we doing today?
I'm doing tremendous. How are you today?
I am doing great. I am excited to talk to you. I love talking about some old school wrestling, especially the stuff I grew up on. So this will be a little bit fun. But first things first, I see it behind you. You just put out a book, Beneath the Skirt, The Wild Journey of Being a Wallflower to a Wrestling Wonder. And I have to ask you, because the definition of a wallflower is someone that is like reserved and kind of shy and timid. And I would never have guessed that was you. When I read the title, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I am actually very introverted. And when I say that, they laugh, but even like today, I'm very introverted, and I'm kind of guess they call it an ambivert, combination of the two. But like if I walk into a room and I don't know anyone, I'm standing in the corner by myself, and I'm in a corner by myself, just hanging out, kind of checking the room out and figuring out where I can fit in and not fit in. And but you know, once you know me, then it's like, okay, then it's totally different. So most of my friends are like, there's no way you're introverted. I'm like, I'm actually very introverted. And part of what I get into in the book is I get very vulnerable and I talk about insecurities I had, you know, growing up, and then not really growing up, but growing up through wrestling. So there's a lot of that in there. So yeah, I can definitely be a wallflower.
I know. I just found that, like, watching you being a headbanger, seeing you do all the other stuff, like, I found that very interesting. But then I've also learned, like, it is very common for a lot of wrestlers to be introverted and the home life be very private and very shy and timid when you meet them, but be able to play this character on screen with ease. It's like this switch that turns on for them. So you assume that they're all extroverted, but it's really like, no. When they're off the screen, they want to just like be in their corner, listening to their music, reading their book, playing the video games. Like they're just totally not.
And like you said, it's a character. You turn the switch on. So for me, I can get dressed. I can put, you know, my skirt on, put the shirt on, put everything on. But once I put the face paint on, for some reason, that's the trigger. That's the switch for me, where it switched me into, I go from Chaz to being Mosh. And that's for me when everything changes. And then once I'm out there in front of people, it's just different because it's a character. It's a gimmick, but it's not really a gimmick because I do really enjoy that type of music. I have been to heavy metal concerts. I've been in mosh pits. I've slam danced. I've stage dived. I've done all of that. And it's just a matter of, you're playing someone else. It's just a different personality, a different persona that comes out.
With everything you just said, that still seems like the complete opposite of a wallflower. A stage dive, a mosh pit, but that also speaks volumes of, like, maybe that also was with wrestling too. Music sometimes can bring a side out of you that isn't you all the time. You hear a certain song, gets you hyped, you got a burst of energy out of nowhere. Do you feel like that was the same with wrestling, where like once your guys' music hit, you were like, all right, like it's game time?
Yeah, once you go through the curtain, the music goes off and you go through and you get that reaction from the crowd, whether it's a positive reaction or a negative reaction, it's a reaction and you feed off of it. So it's the same thing. It's like, you said music. So music for me is big. Music is, I listen to certain music when I'm at the gym. So it's either what kind of mood am I in or what kind of mood do I want to get into, depending on what kind of music I hit or I listen to. But yeah, once that music hits, you go through the curtain. It's all reaction and you're just feeling it from the crowd.
Yeah, no, that's what I kind of feel like I can relate to that, because even I could be so tired and a certain song hits, I'm like, all right, let's go. Everybody check out the book. We're going to talk more about it in a bit, but get the book if you can. It's available now already. You can look it up on Amazon and anywhere else you can get books from. So check out Beneath the Skirt, The Wild Journey from a Wallflower to a Wrestling Wonder. I love reading wrestling books. I always find it inspiring reading other people's autobiographies, because it doesn't matter how big of a star or how famous they are in your eyes, you also realize they are just like you and they went through struggles, and you can relate with them, and you actually get to hear about their failures, because we always just see people's success, not really like the long and winding road. So check it out, give it a read. But we're going to throw it back for a second, because, being the Wrestling Classic, I love to know. And I feel like every time I talk to people from every different generation, they have a totally different story. It is a cliche question, but I love the story. What is your earliest memories of professional wrestling? When's the first time you saw it and you're like, oh, I like this?
First time I saw it, geez, I had to be 12, 13, just flipping through channels, and it was like Hulk Hogan caught my eye. Like, everyone at age, Hulk Hogan was the thing. Hulk Hogan caught my eye, and what I really liked about wrestling was, back then when I watched it, it wasn't like it is now. Now, there are competitive matches, and there's false finishes, and you're like, oh, like you almost had them.
Yeah.
And, back then it was squash matches. Yeah, and that's when I started. That's what I did. I was a jobber. I was an enhancement guy. And you just go out there, you get the shit beat out of you by the superstar. So I wasn't so much into the matches. I was into the promos, the interviews, and the storylines. And I would tape it every Saturday morning. WWE, WWF Superstars, WWE Challenge, whatever it was. And I would fast forward through the matches because you know who was going to win. I'd fast forward with the interviews. I would stop and I would watch because I wanted to see the storylines. That's what got me all in it first. And then, of course, that's when, you had WrestleMania, and, they would simulcast it, and, you could go. I grew up in South Jersey. I'd go to the Garden State racetrack with a couple of friends, and we watched it on the big screen, and everyone's like sitting there kind of watching it like a movie. And here's my buddies and I were screaming and yelling at a screen where no one can hear us. So, but we didn't care. We just were there to have a good time.
Yeah. No, honestly, it was just like that before, because I feel like I did the same thing. I had a bunch of wrestling on tapes, plus I watched it live. But the stuff that I had on tapes, I was always like, I'd forward the matches and go to the entrances and the promos and what's the story, and then watch like the end 5 minutes of a match where, like, I think the culture has changed quite a bit, where it is like people do love the matches and are invested and they're very competitive. But it was the time. Do you have any stories specifically that you think would be cool to share from the times you've done extra work, like before you were officially with the company? Obviously, you said you did enhancement work, this and that. Was there any stories you have from that time? Was it what was the first time like?
The very first time was amazing, and this is in the book as well. But I was only training 3 weeks down at the wrestling school, and when I went to the wrestling school, I went there to watch a show. I didn't even realize there was a school there. And I went to it said pro wrestling. It was spray painted on the side of a truck. Pro wrestling Saturday night, 8:00. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know what this is, but let me go check it out. And it turns out it was a school. So 3 weeks in, WWF would do their Saturday morning TV tapings. They'd run up and down the East Coast of the United States. And, they're basically Northeast then. So when they were in the area, they would call Larry Sharp and they would use his guys. So that's what Glenn said to me. He goes, hey, WWF's in town. We're going to go and do TV taping, and you're coming. And I'm like, TV taping? I'm like 3 weeks in. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I barely knew how to bump and never threw a foot. Barely knew how to hit the ropes. He's like, oh, they won't use you. He goes, because it's the first time there. He goes, but at the same time, it'll be good. It'll be fun. You'll get paid. They'll see you maybe next time. I'm like, cool, I'll go. So I was just in awe because, again, 3 weeks in, I was still a big fan. I was still watching everything. And I'm sitting in the locker room with, Bret Hart, and there's Shawn, and there's Kevin Nash, and there's Scott Hall, and, all these guys are in there. Macho Man's my all-time favorite. I got the experience to meet Macho Man, and Scott Steiner's running around the locker room naked, and I was just like in awe, going like, holy crap, like this is amazing. And then when they rolled out, Tony Gurria rolled out the big whiteboard, and it said Chaz Ware versus Adam Bomb. I was like, I looked at Glenn, and I'm like, he goes, guess you're wrestling tonight, and yeah, so it was very surreal. And then, like I said, Macho Man is my all-time favorite. We're standing in the hallway, and Macho Man comes down, and Glenn does the old oops and literally pushes me into him. And if it wasn't for the wall behind him, I would have been laying on top of him. And I'm like, holy shit! Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I was freaking out, and I turned around, and Glenn was gone. Like, he ducked on the corner, so it was just Macho Man and I. I'm like, so this is the first time like I meet my all-time favorite. But yeah, it was just, it was a very surreal. It was very, I can't believe I'm here, and it was awesome. That's what it really.
How did Macho Man react once you introduced yourself, or did he react at all?
He didn't. I think he probably kind of saw it, so he kind of like played it off. But to make it better, is later that night I'm waiting at gorilla position to go out to the ring and to work Adam Bomb, and he comes walking by, and he stopped and talked to me, and he was like, first time here, and I'm like, yeah, and he's like, oh, eventually he says, you know what, I have nothing else going on. He goes, I'm going to stand right here by the monitor and watch. And I'm like, no, like enough pressure on myself to go up there. Like, I don't need to know in the back of my head that the Macho Man's in the back watching me. And when after I did my thing with Adam Bomb, I came into the back, and Macho Man was standing right there. He put his arm around me, walked me down the hall, and he slapped me in the back of the head and said, kid, one of these days you're going to make good money in this business. And off he went. Only interaction I had with the man.
What a stamp of approval, though, to get on your first time doing extra work with the WWE. And likewise, he's my favorite of all time. So, like, I'm always interested in hearing a Macho Man story. So that was great. Yeah. I'm glad I asked the follow-up if you guys did get to talk, because that is a cool little follow-up. Yeah, and start your career like that is dope. 3 weeks in, and you're getting a stamp of approval from the Macho Man.
3 weeks in, I get beat up by Adam Bomb, Papa Shango, and I get to meet Macho Man and have a good conversation. So, yeah, it was amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't think people are aware of this, right? Like, most people aren't aware of this, is that a lot of people know about you and Glenn being the Headbangers, but they don't realize you guys go all the way back to the beginning. Like, he basically was your trainer and someone you started out with. So this is like a lifelong partnership you guys had in the wrestling business. Tell me a little bit about Thrasher. Tell me a little bit about Glenn and your guys' relationship and what he taught you the most when you first linked up with him.
Yeah, so when I went down to the building, the Route 30 flea market to watch, again, like I said, I didn't realize it was a school. So I hung around, and I kind of was like, I saw like WWA, I saw Monster Factory on a wall, and there was no internet back then, so I didn't know what any of that meant or what it was. And Glenn was wrestling at the Spiders at the time, and he was the Larry Sharp's WWE champion. And I watched him wrestle, and actually I was watching the show, and I'm like, the only thing I had ever been to was WWF shows or WCW shows when they would come into Philly. So, you had the lights, you had, it was just more, and the guys were all polished. I'm watching these indie guys. This first indie show I've ever been to, I didn't even know what an indie was.
Yeah.
I'm watching them, and I'm like, these guys are sloppy. Like, their outfits are terrible. And I was totally judging everything. And then I kind of lingered after the show, and Glenn took his mask off, and I was like, kind of looked over. I'm like, guy looks familiar. Here, I went over to him. We started talking. Our high schools wrestled one another. We grew up literally 15 minutes from each other.
Wow.
Our high schools wrestled one another. We never wrestled each other because we were in different weight classes, but our high schools wrestled each other, so we kind of knew of one another. And, like I said, he was the heavyweight champ. He was Larry's head trainer at the time. And we just started talking, and he was like, oh, did you ever think about trying out? And I'm like, at this point, I was still kind of wrestling amateur-wise a little bit in college, doing like AAU tournaments and stuff like that. And I was 165, 170 pounds. And I said, dude, I got to put weight on. I'm like, you're 6'4", you're like 240. And he goes, no, the best time to learn is as you put weight on. He said, because if you wait 3 months and you come back 50 pounds heavier, Like, it's not going to be as easy for you to, to take the falls, to do the flips, to do the bumps, to do this. So I was like, all right. So I went down. I don't know, it was a week or two later. I did a tryout, and there were 6 of us in the tryout. And Larry told us before the tryout, he goes, I don't accept everybody, which I thought was bullshit because I knew the school was $3,000. I'm like,
if someone is gonna pay, they're gonna accept them.
Yeah, it's $18,000 right there. You're taking everybody. But what happened was Larry only took 2 of us. And the reason was, and it makes sense after it was explained to me, Larry didn't want anyone to come to his school that he didn't think had ability to make it somewhere, because then that would make his school look bad. He didn't want his name being out there attached to some shitty wrestler. Yeah. So Glenn was a trainer. He started training me, and we literally just clicked. It was like we knew each other our entire lives.
How much longer was Glenn wrestling before you started? Like, how many years in was he?
Glenn was about 2 years in, maybe.
Okay, that's cool. That's just random. I was just curious. I was like, okay.
What's up, everybody? This is RB here from Rain City Toys. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Wrestling Classic. Check out the TWC show that Justin and I do weekly. Also subscribe to Just Yappin'. Justin and I talk about wrestling and everything else that we feel like talking about. If you guys are looking for figures, hit me up. Got some old school legends right here like Rick Martel. Find some of the newer guys like CM Punk. Got some Stone Cold Steve Austin. Anything you're looking for, just hit me up. Follow me on Instagram, Rain City Toys. Hit me up on TikTok, Rain City Toys. Kind of falling behind Justin here on some followers, so let's get those subscriber count up. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And you guys go back to the show, and hope you guys enjoy.
So let's fast forward a little bit. Like, you guys started tag teaming, you guys are working together. You guys did the stuff as the Spiders. You became the second Spider with them. There's a run in Smokey Mountain Wrestling. When did the Headbangers get born? Like, what was the creation behind the Headbangers? For younger fans, I know this is going to be a little bit of a description of the 90s, but when were the Headbangers born? How did that become created?
They came because of Jim Cornette.
Yeah.
Cornette wanted us to bring us into Smokey Mountain Wrestling, but Cornette did not like masked wrestlers. He didn't like guys wearing hoods. So he called us up and he said, hey, I'd like to bring you guys in. He said, but I don't like the masks. He said, I have this idea. This is actually really funny, but he said, I was at a Glenn Danzig concert in New York City. He said, and these guys, there was an opening act. They were wearing dresses. They had makeup on. They had tattoos. He said they were like diving off the stage. They were spitting on each other. They're beating the shit out of each other. He said, not that I want you guys to do all of that and with crazy outfits. He goes, but just being from the Northeast, I think your attitudes, your personas could like pull that off. And I said, Jimmy, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been to the Bank. I've been to the Underground. Like, I've gone to concerts like that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And here it turns out the opening act was actually Marilyn Manson.
Yeah. He didn't know? Yeah.
He had no idea. No, I mean, Marilyn Manson was kind of just getting started then also.
Yeah. But it's pretty cool that's really what the influence was.
Yeah. So he goes, I want you guys, this type of music is now. He goes, I want you guys to be like, we're your children. We're the children of the 90s. When we showed up to our first TV taping, he handed Glenn a Metallica shirt. He gave me a Slayer shirt. And he said, this is the type of stuff I want you to wear. He goes, but, we'll get out there and we'll figure it out. So it was Cornette's idea. That's what got us to spend. And at that point, we didn't care. We wanted to go to Smokey Mountain. We had been in USWA as a Spiders. We had been in Ozark Mountain Wrestling with Burt Prentice for a year and a half and as a Spiders, and it was going nowhere. And so we were like, hey, here's another door towards WWF. And plus we were going to get paid $75 a night. So that was a gold mine. And so we were like, listen, it's another opportunity and let's try it out. And we did. And we eventually just stuck with it and we kept growing it and evolving the gimmick into what it is today.
So the Spiders was basically you guys in mass. Like what exactly was the Spiders gimmick if you were going to describe it?
We were human spiders that really weren't spiders. I mean,
I didn't want to say that. I'm like, would you portraying spiders? Is that exactly okay? So it was exactly that, kind of like a Spider-Man situation, but no webs or spidery stuff.
Well, we had webs because we would actually. Larry used to get mad at us because we would come out with silly string. And,
okay.
But then we'd sit the day before and we would buy cases of silly string and we'd wrap electrical tape around it. And then we would sell them for, I don't know, like back down, probably like $5 a can. And that's how we made our money. But then Larry got mad because of the cleanup. So Glenn and I said, well, we make so much money selling the silly string, like we'll stay after the show and we'll clean it all up. Like it's not a big deal because that's how much money we were making doing it. But yeah, the thing was Glenn was wrestling as a spider before, which was inspired by Larry kind of gave him the idea by telling him that his body type reminded him of Macho Man, and Macho Man wrestled under a hood as a spider before.
As a spider, yeah.
While he was doing minor league baseball. So when Glenn and I got together, his name, the spider was kind of established in that area, and it just made sense when we started tagging for me to just kind of jump in on it and ride with it from there and see where it went.
Do you have a memorable, either like your most memorable feud or like even moment or something from Smokey Mountain Wrestling? Like at what point were you like, okay, we've caught our stride here as the Headbangers?
The most memorable thing about Smokey Mountain was the fact that we were actually getting real help. What do I mean by real help? When we went to USWA, we got no guidance. It was, the culture and atmosphere in USWA and Smokey Mountain were night and day. The culture in USWA was, hey, we live here. We have all these guys that come in from the Northeast. We know they're only staying 3 to 6 months and then they're going to move on. So we don't really care. Like no one really helped.
Yeah.
Eddie Gilbert was very helpful. The Axel Rotten was very helpful when we were there, but we knew Axel from the Northeast anyway from before. But when we got to Smokey Mountain, it was we'd go out and we're working Ricky and Robert, the Rock and Roll Express. We're working the Thugs, Tracy Smothers, and Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony. Then the Heavenly Bodies came in, and we would get done doing a match, and they would pull us aside and actually talk to us and go, hey, this was good. Maybe try this. Let's try this next time. Let's try that. At USWA, it was just go out there and do your thing and hope you didn't get hurt. So that's probably the biggest thing we got out of it was we really started learning that. And we were actually able to take that and, move when Smokey Mountain closed down, we were able to move on with a lot more information and being a lot better than when we got there.
When did you guys know that the WWF was reaching out to you guys? And was there any offers from WCW, or was it just the WWF was like they were interested?
Nope, we got nothing from WCW. It was always WWF, and it was actually again Cornette. Cornette was a huge factor in our careers. So basically, what happened was Cornette, Smoky Mountain shut down, and when it shut down, Cornette sat down with the entire locker room. He said, "My goal is to try and get everyone a job up there," because he was working with WWF full time then, and he said that's my goal. And we were driving back. We did a show in Michigan. We're driving back, and Glenn and I had a 1-800 beeper, a toll-free beeper. People could leave us messages. We could call into the beeper and listen to the messages, but we really had no way to call anybody back.
Yeah.
But we got a message from Cornette, and we're like, oh, we got a message from Cornette. We need to call him right away, because if not, it may be days before, we get a hold of him, because if it's travel and stuff like that. So we literally pulled over and we found a payphone, and we were both on the payphone like this, and it had been raining. So we were standing in a puddle on around the payphone, and we got a hold of Cornette, and he said, hey, he goes, what are you boys doing? We're like, oh, we're driving back, from Michigan, heading back to Jersey. He's like, all right. He goes, I have some good news. And we're like, okay. He goes, we need you in Hartford, Connecticut next, whatever it was, Monday or Tuesday. And we're like, okay. He goes, so at this point, they had started a part-time contract. WWF did. And the part-time contract was to take certain guys. That's when they had Freddie Joe Floyd, TL Hopper, the Goon, guys like that. He goes, the idea is to build them up to a certain level and then have them wrestle top guys so they're more competitive matches instead of just everything being a squash match.
Yeah.
Like, okay. He goes, so he said that he went into Vince, and he goes, I caught Vince in a great mood. And I said to Vince, hey, I got these two guys. I got this tag team I'd like to bring up, have you take a look at them, let them do a dark match. And Vince was like, well, tell me about them. And he said, well, he goes, they've been up here. They've done jobs before. He goes, they've wrestled as themselves, Chaz and Glenn. He goes, they've come up as the spiders with the masks on, and Vince turned around and looked at him and goes, yeah. He goes, I know who you're talking about. He goes, they don't need a tryout, just put them under the part-time contract.
Well, that's awesome.
So it was Cornette telling us, it was Cornette pitching us to Vince, Cornette calling us while we're standing in a puddle outside in a little bit of rain. And that's how we found out that we got our first contract.
And then probably felt like all the hard work paid off. You guys are finally getting to the WWF where you guys wanted to be. Speaks volumes on Cornette, because you've heard stories about other promoters that invest all this time in this talent, and then their company shuts down or something, and the talent goes like, well, we don't even know what happened. Then they showed up on WWF television, or once we finally got there, like, they didn't help me anymore. Like, I just interviewed Raven, and he said that about Heyman. He's like, I have nothing but love for Heyman, but once the company shut down and I went to WWF, like, he just wasn't the same with me anymore. Well, like Cornette wanted to really take care of his guys, which speaks about Cornette.
Cornette was amazing, especially for us. Obviously, giving us the headbanger idea, giving us a chance at Smokey Mountain, giving us a chance up there. But once we got those contracts, Cornette said to us, and then Cornette said this to us, and it was funny, when our first TV, Cornette took us over to Bruce Pritchard. Bruce Pritchard had the contracts, in an envelope, and was going over them with us. And they both said it at separate times. They said, okay, congratulations, but now it's up to you to make sure you stay.
Yeah.
And so it was like, all right, we made it, but we really didn't make it. Like, it was like, and then out of all the part-time guys, we were the only ones that signed full-time deals from there.
That's awesome. What was the Flying Nuns? Did that happen before you guys got to officially be the Headbangers? Or was that like...
No, that was, we had wrestled a couple of matches as the Headbangers. We had TV matches as the Headbangers. We went over on one, then we lost on another one. Which was, the idea. And I think one of the things is with Vince is he always wanted to create his own characters. And we came in as the Headbangers. He signed us as the Headbangers, but he wanted to make something different. And then, so he came up with this idea with the Flying Nuns. And then they were starting Shotgun Saturday nights. That's when they were live in the nightclubs. I think it was a combination of, we lived in New Jersey, so we could drive to New York when they were doing these shows. So there was no trans, because we would drive up, do the show, and we would drive home. So there was no hotel. There was no nothing like that. So they could get us up there. And then it was, all right, let's try shock value. We're going to be in the Mirage nightclub at midnight or 11 o'clock, whenever it was. Like, let's do something that's going to be shocking, that's going to get people talking. And that's what the Flying Nuns were. And then we had Bruce Pritchard with us, and we were like, whoa, this is big, because Vince invested in it. And then Vince even came into the back when we were getting dressed and putting these nun outfits on. And he goes, yeah, he's like, the breasts aren't big enough. And he grabbed tablecloths and started stuffing tablecloths down our shirt. And they were like, 2 feet, a foot and a half out. And he goes, yeah, that's good. He goes, I just need them a little fuller. I want them huge. He goes, I want you guys feeling them up when you're out there. He goes, I want this to be sadistic. Now, me, I was an altar boy growing up. So I'm like, this is weird. But yeah, so that was kind of Vince's thing. And then it got a lot of negative heat. And then we were supposed to go to Texas and do it down there for a Shotgun Saturday night. And basically it was going to be boycotted, and they weren't going to let them run if the Flying Nuns were there. So Glenn and I were there, but they didn't do it. And then the next week we got arrested outside the Disney store for staring at little boys and girls and inside the store. But the way it was pitched to us was, Vince's idea was, we're so crazy that you never know what the Headbangers are going to do. You never know what they're going to wear. You never know what they're going to say. And that's kind of how it, from what we were told, that's kind of how it went down.
So it was Headbangers to Flying Nuns, back to Headbangers, because the Flying Nun thing just wasn't going to fly. And he wanted you guys to be voluptuous nuns, which is wild.
Yes.
It's funny because you always hear those stories about, like, when it's a Vince idea, he gets super passionate about it and he wants to be, and I think I've interviewed enough for us, is what they say, sometimes I feel like the promoters are trying to live vicariously through you. Like, they're trying to, they have ideas.
I believe it's, Vince's thing because he gets excited about it, but then it's also everything's always a test. So it's like, okay, give these guys a thing, like, what are they going to do? And at that point we were like, listen, we're just happy to have a job. We're just happy to be here. And then because of all of that, we got booked on every every live Shotgun Saturday night except for one. Booked on every single one, and I think was very helpful in us getting over, not only with the boys, but also with the crowd and with the office. If it wasn't for Shotgun Saturday night, I don't know if we would have taken off as quickly as we did.
Yeah. No, you got a point, because you guys being willing to take that risk and try something different probably gained you guys a little bit more respect from Vince. Being like, oh, they did, if you said no, then you might be labeled as hard to work with, or doesn't want to play ball, So that's good. And Shotgun Saturday night, that was such a vibe for the Headbangers. It made sense. I remember those early episodes in the clubs. Like
it was, because it was in the clubs. We could jump up on the tables and dive off the tables and dive into the crowd. They would catch us. I remember I don't remember what club it was, but I remember standing up on the top rope, and I looked down. I'm like, you better catch me. I'm like, guys, get close, because I'm diving. And I dove into the crowd. They surfed me around, and it put me back up on the apron. I think all of the combination of that was just a perfect fit for us.
It was like, it wasn't the Attitude Era yet, but it was a transition period, and that's where you got most of the raunchy underground, a little bit more this is for the college kids and adults vibe was Shotgun Saturday night. And that was the time where Marilyn Manson and that heavy metal stuff started popping off. Nirvana and grunge and that stuff was popping off, and you guys fit right in with it. So it was super cool. How did you expect the Headbangers to get over as it did in WWF, or was it kind of like, were you guys kind of like, whoa, like they like us, like we're getting a reaction out here? Like
it kind of shocked us, because it's like we were new, and then where we really realized it was getting over was WrestleMania 13 in Chicago. Again, so we signed in November of 96, and then WrestleMania 13, March of 97. So what are we, 6 months there? And we walked into the hotel, and it was just packed. There were so many fans in there. You couldn't move. You couldn't pack. Security's trying to clear a path for us. And then out of nowhere, you just heard a Headbanger chant start. The Headbangers, Headbanger. And we turn around. We're like, are you yelling at us? Like, at this point, like, I don't know if anybody, like, I don't I always have this, I'm very humble about it. And I've always, like, nobody knows who I am. And even to this day, when somebody comes up to me, I'm still like, oh, you remember me? Like, that's awesome. But we were getting over, and that's when it was. And I talk about this in the book, is Glenn and I went upstairs to our room, and then we were like, we want to feel that again. We went back downstairs and then went into the bar and started drinking with everybody. And that was our thing. And then we realized, without the fans, there would be no us. So we wanted always, as much as possible, incorporate them into what we did. So when we did stuff, appearances, we wanted to get them involved. We wanted to joke around with them. We wanted to get personal. We wanted to go down, we go to the bars with them and have a few drinks and hang out with them, because if it wasn't for them, there would be, like I said, there would be no us. So that's what we realized. And that's why when we won the tag titles, first thing we did was we went into the crowd. And then they saw us in the crowd, and we got into the back. They were like, that was awesome. Let's go. We're going to the hot dog stand now. We're going to have hot dogs and soda. And we were like, cool. So everything we tried doing, we tried incorporating the fans into it.
Yeah. What did that mean to you in that moment? Like, if you could put yourself back in that moment again of winning the tag titles, how did you feel that day?
Boy, it's so hard to put that into words. It's one of those moments when you just go, holy cow, like you can't believe it. The office is thinking of you as leading that, we only had him for a month, but we thanked Vince for it, and Vince was like, you guys do a lot for us. We really appreciate it. So it was the thank you was one thing, but it was just like, I can still remember, like, just sitting there, like, I'd get home and had the belt sitting there, and I would just look at it and be like, holy shit, because the history of that belt, especially the belts they had back then, they were held by, the Hart Foundation, LOD, Demolition, because at that point they didn't change the belts as often as they do.
Yeah.
So it
was the same belts from the 80s. It was the same design.
So the same people that actually held that belt, like, I had it in my hands now. So it was just, I don't even know. It's so hard to put it into words other than just saying how awesome it was and surreal, and just being like, and not even a feeling of we made it. it just was, I guess the biggest thing was the recognition from the office that, hey, these guys are doing a good job. And, because everyone says, oh, you won the belt. You didn't really win the belt. It's kind of given to you.
Yeah.
But it's just the vote of confidence that you get from the office. And you go, oh, wow, we're being recognized, and they're seeing the hard work and what we're doing, because Glenn and I turned into the appearance kings. Anytime, Dave Hebner would walk through, or somebody would walk through and go, hey, I need somebody to do an appearance, do a meet and greet. We're like, all right, let's go. And we would go and do it. So it was kind of recognition for all that.
You've heard that even recently, where like they say it a lot about the Miz. Like, one of the best things he ever did was he was always ready to do whatever. You want me to go to the radio? You want me to go on TV? You want me to make an appearance? And like that helped him in the long run. But it must have been such a surreal moment to finally win those. It is a stamp of approval. It is a moment of acknowledgement that they see your hard work and they want to reward you with giving you. Because there's a lot of great tag teams that never held those belts, never got title runs, right? Like, you could have fallen in that category, but you guys aren't. You guys are former WWF Tag Team Champions in an era when wrestling was super hot. Like 1997 might be like one of the top years in wrestling in terms of just like both companies were hitting on all strides. In 97, 98, 99, probably the most people ever were watching wrestling on cable television, not streaming, not on YouTube later, like live on TV. Like, it was a hell of an era.
It was so hot, and Stone Cold was so hot, because I remember sitting in the ring. We're getting ready to go into the finish, and during that match. And during the match, it was just like butterflies the entire time. Even when we're into the match, I was still like, oh my God, is this really happening? Is this a rib? Like, is someone just going to roll someone else up? And like, they were messing with us. But we're going for our stage dive finish. And, Davey Boy grabs Glenn's foot. He goes down. Owen backdrops me. Owen goes to flip me over to put me in a sharpshooter. And I just hear it, because back then when you did run-ins, they didn't hit the people's music like they do now.
Yeah.
So I just knew Stone Cold was. I couldn't see him, but I knew he was there by the reaction of the crowd. I'm getting goosebumps telling you, because I literally laying in the ring got goosebumps, and even Owen didn't have to. I'm like, I looked up at Owen, I go, he's there, and boom, and I pushed him off into the stunner. And then the video's the best to me, because I sit there and I look up around like, oh crap, and then I go, well, I might as well cover him.
Yeah.
3. It was just, it was so hot. It was scary. And Steve was so great back then. It was amazing.
No, and think about it, you won the tag titles in an angle where you had Austin, Owen, and Bulldog involved with the two. Like, it's just incredible time. Like, how great was Owen? Like, how easy was it to work with Owen?
Owen was amazing. Owen was great to work with, because he was, one of those guys that would pull us aside after a match and talk to us. Brett was the same way when we first got there. Owen was great, but the one thing was, you weren't always sure if he was being honest or ribbing you, because he was a big ribber. So he would, there's a couple of times he would come up when we first got there. Like our first WrestleMania, we went over, we won. And then the next night we get a title shot on Raw against him and Davey Boy. And, we're talking about the match and going over just a couple of things. And then Owen would come back later and he'd be like, all right, so what are we doing tonight? And we're like, we just talked about it like an hour ago. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then Davey Boy would come up and go, so what are we doing tonight? And we were like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? And Owen would lay out like a totally different match. And then you were like, so what are we doing? And then an hour later, Owen would come up and go, all right, so this is what we're doing, right? And he would go back to what he told us the first time. It was like, so, but that's what made it. It was fun. After you got to know Owen, you got to like, it made you relax and go, oh, okay, like Owen's messing around again. But at first, it was like, what the hell is wrong with him? Like, is he really messed up? Is something wrong with him? Like, CTE wasn't a thing then, but wasn't. But no, just Owen was an amazing. He's one of the greatest guys ever that I got to work with. He was amazing.
That's awesome. A couple of headbanger questions before I move on. How did you guys decide and settle on your guys' distinctive face paints that you chose for each, like for yourself and for Glenn? Like, there's been amazing face paints throughout the years. We had obviously the LOD Road Warriors, Demolition, Sting. They all kind of came up with their distinctive look. They stuck with it. How did you guys come up with yours and be like, okay, this is yours, this is mine, this is what the look is?
It just kind of just evolved. Like I remember Cornette saying, hey, makeup and stuff like that. He goes, I don't want you to wear makeup. He goes, just take, he had the black acrylic paint that we use, and we were in the back, and we're like sitting there like trying to be almost putting like eye black on for like a baseball or a football game. We're trying to be like real nice and neat with it. And Cornette comes over, he goes, no, and he sticks his finger in it, and he just goes wham, wham on my cheeks. Goes like this on my cheeks. He goes, that's it, perfect. He goes, it doesn't have to be nice. He goes, it's got to be something. And then just over the years, it just however we felt like doing it. Like certain pay-per-views, we do a little different. And then Glenn started going all the way around the eye. So it just all depended. And now mine is, it's kind of like it's darker up here, and I kind of just let it bleed down a little bit. So it's one of those things where it's changed, it's evolved over the years. There was no rhyme or reason to it.
That's honest, but for your guys' character, it makes sense, right? Like you guys are the Headbangers. Like you're gonna go to a rave or something, you're just gonna paint your face and make it look as wild and crazy as possible. The fits, the kilts, the skirts, the t-shirts, like this wasn't typical black boots, tights. You know, you guys had your own distinctive look. Where'd you guys go to buy your stuff? Were you guys always constantly going to random malls being like, oh, this could probably work, or that shirt would probably work? Like, how did this work?
So, like I said, when we first got to Smokey Mountain, Cornette had a Slayer shirt for me and Metallica shirt for Glenn. We at the first TVs we went to, we wore shorts. I had like black shorts. I think Glenn had jean shorts. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to expect. I had work boots on. Glenn wore sneakers. We went out with glasses on and like a baseball hat on backwards. We didn't know. The problem with that was PG-13 was big in the Tennessee area, and they basically wore the same thing: sneakers, jeans. So, we were like, I said to Glenn, I go, we got to figure something out because we kind of look like PG-13, except we're a lot bigger than them. And so we went to a thrift store. And we were just looking. We had no idea what to do or what to wear because when you go to a concert, you wear clothes. You really don't care what happens to them because you get ripped, it could get shredded. So Glenn was like walking, and I walked out, and I glanced over and I saw the women's stuff. So I made a right-hand turn. I went down the aisle, and I just started going through skirts, and I found a couple that I thought looked kind of cool. I put it on and I walked down the aisle towards him, and he turns around, he looks at me, he goes, absolutely not. He goes, no way. And I go, come on. I go, let's just try it. Like, let's go. We have got a show tonight. Let's just try it. He's like, absolutely not. I convinced him to try it. I said, what's the worst case that happens? The guys in the locker room make fun of us. Cornette tells us it's stupid and says no. We waste $5 because I think they were like $2 or $3 a piece. That's what we did. We showed up, and it happened exactly how I thought it would. Tracy Smothers, Dirty White Boy, like, what the F are you guys wearing? Like, you're wearing skirts, like that's dumb, and blah 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 blah. I'm like, we're trying something different. Like, leave us alone. And it was very uncomfortable. And the whole time, Glenn's going, I told you. These are dumb. We went out. We got so much heat. We were, here we're wrestling in the Bible Belt of America, and there's two guys coming out with heavy metal music because we carried a radio out there, and I would had Mother by Danzig blaring through, and then face paint on, Slayer t-shirt, and now we're in skirts and combat boots because now we have combat boots. Used combat boots, and we got so much heat from the crowd. We walked through the curtain. Cornette was standing there, and he goes, "Where did you buy the skirts?" I said, "Thrift store." He handed us each $20 a piece, and he goes, "Go buy more. You now wear skirts." Where it came from. And then as far as shirts came, we'd go to a thrift store and we'd find used t-shirts that we thought were cool or different, and we would wear. And then once we got up to WWF, we went and bought nice because they wanted the Marilyn Manson shirts. We actually went to Hot Topic and bought like the shirts. But once we started getting on TV a lot, we started getting it over more. Bands started mailing their merchandise in to the office.
Smart.
And they would get it to TV, and they were cool looking shirts, like Typo Negative shirts, Morbid Angel shirts. They were cool looking. Some of them were long sleeves, so instead of cutting the sleeves off, I would cut slits in them to make it a little bit different. And, we'd start wearing those. And then that's how we got them. And then one time we're getting ready to go out to TV, and it was Pat Patterson. He was sitting there, and he looks up at us. He goes, "Don't you guys have your own shirts now?" And we're like, "Yeah." He goes, "Why aren't you wearing them?" I said, "Well, because, we have all these shirts that people send in." And he goes, "Are you being paid to wear those shirts?" And we said, "No, sir." He goes, "How are people going to buy your shirts if you're not wearing your own shirts?" And we went,
Yeah.
"Good point." So from that point forward, that's when we had the real men wear skirts written on the back of the shirt with the spider web with our faces on it. And the funny part was letters started coming in from the bands, and they were like, "How come you're not wearing our stuff anymore?" And blah, blah. And we were like, we didn't write them back, but it was like, well, we have our own merch we got to push now. Like,
Yeah.
So it started out as whatever we thought was cool and different. That's what we get. And then obviously when we got to WWF, they started making T-shirts. We had to wear our own T-shirts.
I could just imagine you guys wrestling down in the South and you guys coming out and the crowd just being like, these Satanists, like these heavy metal makeup wearing, skirt wearing men, what are they doing? Like I believe it. One last thing about the Headbangers in this era really quickly is that you guys came up with a really distinctive, quick little, like a distinctive strut that you'd run into each other and do the little butt clap, basically. When did that start? Was that just a thing you're like, what's going to be our signature, a little entrance move, or how did that come about?
Yeah, one of the things Cornette wanted was he wanted us to act like we were in a mosh pit. He wanted us. You'll see there's a couple of matches early on where, like, I remember there's one distinct one when we're working the Hardys on Monday Night Raw, and this is when the Hardys were not the Hardys, and like I tag Glenn in, and he goes to get out, and we do a double team move, and then we just kind of start hitting each other. Early on, Cornette wanted us to act like we were in a mosh pit. We would beat the shit out of each other. Like WrestleMania 13, we end up in the ring together, and the backsplash thing was kind of our way of just slam dance. Basically, that's us slam dance, and then jumping off and then doing our own little dance that we did. But that's how it started. Cornette wanted this to be so extreme and out there. He wanted us. He told us, he goes, "If you're driving down the road and you see a dead animal, he goes, grab it, wrap a rope around its neck, and pull it to the ring." We're like, "Jimmy, I don't really feel like dragging roadkill to the ring." But no, he had us, like, when we go to the ring, when we first started, I would walk down the front row and just spit on the crowd. I would spit on people, and that's what he wanted to do. It wanted to be. So that's what it was about. It was just us beating the shit out of ourselves and our opponents and just having a good time.
That's awesome. And then Glenn got hurt. And then they repackaged you. And they introduced this Leave It to Beaver themed character with the Beaver Cleavage stuff. What was your initial reaction to hearing about this? And once again, you being you, all right, they're giving me something to do. I'll try to make the best I can. But what was your initial reaction?
The initial reaction was like, oh, crap. I never really did singles. I've had singles matches, but Glenn at ringside with me. Before Glenn and I started tagging down at with the Monster Factory, I only had three singles matches, and then Glenn and I started tagging. So it was kind of like, oh, crap. Amber, hold 1 second.
Yep.
I don't know if you can hear that. The dog's chewing her bone.
No, it's totally okay.
Sorry. So, yeah. So at first it was like, oh, crap. But then I went, you know what? I've never done anything on my own. This is exciting. I'm gonna try this out. I don't know where this gimmick's gonna go, and just ride it out. And at the same time, Glenn was rehabbing, but not really rehabbing because he was gaining a lot of weight. And I kind of just thought, okay, this could be my opportunity to try and figure out something. And the Beaver Cleavage thing was fun. And it was fun because it was something different. It was something different, and it was a character. It was a way I portray myself by acting like a big kid, by burying my head in, my mother's boobs every night. So it was fun. When it turned weird, actually, for me, was when they said to me, all right, they killed Beaver Cleavage, and they said, okay, now you're going to go out there and you're going to be Chaz, a kid from New Jersey who's just happy to be here. And I went, who's Chaz?
Yeah. Yeah.
Figure it out. And, I wasn't, the girl Mariana and we didn't really gel. The whole backstory of that's actually in the book. But we didn't gel, and I was trying to actually do everything I could to get away from her. Like pitching different ideas to do a different thing without her. When looking back now, I didn't see the business side of it, not realizing back then anyone who had a female with them, they were getting a push. And that's not something I realized, because if that was the case, it could have been like, there's people now at my shoot job that I don't like, but I deal with them because I have to. Like, I should have embraced her for work, but didn't mean I had to hang out with her. So at first it was like, okay, this is cool. It's a character. But once they made me be Chaz and I was on my own, I was like, all right, so who is Chaz? Like, I had to figure this out. And then I just started to find myself. I just started to get going when they brought Glenn back.
Yeah. And it was interesting because it's like, initially they tried to distance you from the headbanger situation. They had you grow out your hair, play this character, do those vignettes, you're with this Mariana girl. And then they kind of just like, okay, well, that's not working. Let's say he's Chaz. Let's remind him that he was Mosh, and it was like, but it was that time, I feel like, where everything was kind of blurred. The lines were blurred between reality and kayfabe. So the internet was popping off. They knew people knew. It was just an interesting time. And then you did the whole thing where she kept trying to get you arrested, and then Glenn returned and you guys were reunited. But that wasn't like a really long run at that point. And I was going to ask about Mariana, but now that you say that, everyone go read the book if you want to know more about that backstory. You can learn more about it there, because I did find her interesting because she didn't last that long either. Like, no, she was there and then she was kind of gone. And
I think it would have been better if they would have let me, the Beaver Cleavage thing when I walked off, let me just go back to being Mosh. Brought her in, and even with Glenn coming back, I could have done something with her. And now looking back at it, realizing, out of all like really good tag teams you have, the Hart Foundation, Brett took off, the Rockers, Sean took off, Edge and Christian, Edge took off. That was kind of my opportunity to take off, but I didn't look at it as an opportunity. I didn't look at the business when I was there as a business. I looked at it as, all right, I have a job. I'm just happy to be here. And my insecurities didn't allow me to take off. It didn't allow me to get comfortable. Like, I felt alone when I was there. Even I was friends with, guys in the locker room. I didn't have that. Glenn was always my security blanket. And looking back, what I know now, obviously I would have done it totally differently, but I should have embraced it, ran with it, learned more. But it wasn't at the time. It wasn't me. It wasn't in my head to do that. It was, let me, again, introverted, let me hide in the corner, let me be, seen and not heard, instead of trying to learn more and really take off and embrace it and take off.
That I think that's the biggest thing with a creative person generally, though. Like, not some creative people are very confident and very secure and will tell you who they are all the time. Where, like, if you're creative but a little bit introverted and there's like a little bit of just like maybe growing up some trauma or something, like there's a level where like you don't own who you are, and there's a little bit of imposter syndrome where you're doing things but you don't know, like you're out of body experiencely doing them. Kind of like, I don't think I belong here, so I'm just gonna tiptoe and go through it as calmly as possible because things are going good, but I don't want to break it. Instead, at some point you got to learn to be like, no, I am that person. I know my value. I know what I bring to the table. And it's hard to switch that sometimes. It takes time to get there.
It's hard to switch. And, I was young back then, and there was no one giving me guidance. It was show up to TV, do what you're asked to do. Like, no one would pull me aside and say, hey, Chaz, like, this could be an opportunity for you to carve your own path, to do your own thing. It was presented as, okay, so this Beaver Cleavage thing's done. Okay, we don't want to use this girl anymore, so we're kind of going to do this story, and then eventually, try to get Glenn to come back. And so it was kind of like that was it. So I kind of stopped thinking. It was like when I went out, I wore smiley face boxer shorts. And the reason I wore those is because, again, you're this happy kid from New Jersey. And then when they said to me, oh, well, eventually, you know, we'll try to bring Glenn back in and get you guys, you know, back together. So I was like, why am I going to invest money into, because it was Vince one time walked by, he goes, boxer shorts, huh? And I went, yeah, as a headbanger, I always wore boxer shorts underneath the skirt. So why not? And if I'm supposed to be a happy kid, like I got happy faces on it. He was like, that's interesting. But I didn't think anything of it. And, you know, I was getting used and I was getting booked on, you know, the house shows and stuff like that. But if I would have had someone say to me, listen, you're being given an opportunity right now. Like, you know, let's run with it or work with it. Maybe it would have been different. I didn't have that guidance back then.
No, 100%. And then you teamed with Glenn for a bit. Those Return the Headbangers for a while. But eventually you were paired up with D'Lo as Lowdown. And
yes.
You were Chaz, he was D'Lo. I just had D'Lo on the show like 3 weeks ago. We talked about this from his end as well. He really enjoyed teaming with you. He said the idea of teaming with you and your guys' team was great. What it was at the beginning, where you guys were coming out there in the streetwear, kind of wearing sweatpants, doing your thing, like that was his favorite part of Lowdown. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And it was fun with D'Lo because obviously we were friends. We've been friends, you know, since all the way back to the Monster Factory. It's funny with D'Lo. I don't know if he shared this with you or not, but our high schools wrestled one another also.
No, he didn't. No.
Yeah, he was like 2 years younger than me. I think my senior year was his sophomore year. But our high schools wrestled one another. D'Lo was a heavyweight, so my heavyweight when I was in high school at that point was like one of my best friends. And so we talked about, so we've known each other for a long time. So for us to be able to work together, it was great because I had someone to bounce ideas off of again. D'Lo and I would drive and come up with different storylines and things like that. And then when the whole Tiger Ali thing came up, it was presented to us one way, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's these turbans. We were like, these turbans were never part of the
pitch
discussion. It was, we're going to give you Tiger because he's getting paid and, you know, he's going to get used. So that means we'll get used. And then that kind of just went, I get from there.
Yeah, so I am Punjabi. I am a Sikh. So seeing that back then, it was kind of confusing because, like, obviously, I'm used to anybody not being American being the bad guy. That's like just wrestling lore. Like, that's just tradition. But the way it was portrayed was like, oh, like they just put turbans on these guys. Like, and D'Lo, I think, put it best. Like, he's like, it would have been great if they actually used actual other Indian Punjabi wrestlers to portray this part than us, because like he's like, people already kind of knew us as D'Lo and Chaz from Mosh. Like it kind of was like off-putting to an extent. Like you guys are supposed to be sympathizers, allegedly.
Yeah, they knew, you know, Chaz and D'Lo, and when we first started tagging, they knew we were both grew up from New Jersey. They knew we were friends. They knew we worked out together. Like, that was the storyline. Oh, these guys hang out together and they eat together. And, you know, Chaz convinced D'Lo not to wear a shirt in the ring, like this whole thing. And then all of a sudden we converted and we were like, wait a minute, this isn't really what we spoke about. This isn't what we signed up for. But at the same time, the thought was, well, if we don't go with this, they're going to do it to someone else and we're not going to get used. And then again, it's a test. We're difficult to work with. But yeah,
maximize your minutes, get on TV.
Right. And the idea D'Lo and I had, which I think would have worked even better, was at one point, Tiger stopped talking. He was like, you guys are your crowd's too disrespectful. I refuse to speak anymore. So then D'Lo and I would talk walking down the ramp, which was perfect. He gave us both time to talk. And then when he got hurt and JR called us up and said, you know, Tiger's hurt. You know, we're going to wait for him to come back. You know, you guys sit home and relax and wait for him. And we were like, no. I was like, no. Keep us on the road. Now it's even better. D'Lo and I go out and say, not only is he not talking to you, he refuses to show up. He's refusing to come to the town. He's not coming in. And then D'Lo and I, from there, we could have slowly got rid of the turban. We could have evolved ourselves back to what we were just evolving more, because now we had more time and we were having great matches with the Hardys. We were having great matches with the Dudleys. We were going over on them. It just would have been, it would have taken off and went really well. But, you know, again, we're the first team to be taken off the road when their manager got hurt.
Yeah. When did you know it was kind of the end of the road for you in the WWF in that run? Like, you were there from 96 to like 2000, I believe, 2001. Like, when did you know, like
2000? Yeah.
2002. Okay. Yeah.
My contract expired January of 02. And I just didn't get re-signed.
Okay.
So it was Tiger got hurt, which was, I think the last time I was on TV with them, it was Super Bowl Sunday of 2001. And then they said, well, we're just going to leave you home. And I was like, oh, okay. So we sat home and worked out and watched TV and just waited. And eventually we got the call that they were sending us to Puerto Rico to get back into ring shape to bring us back up to TV. And I asked them, like, can I go to OVW instead of Puerto Rico? I'm like, OVW, it's a drive. It's still a 10-hour drive, but I could drive there because they said, we want you to go and figure out who Chaz is. Perfect. OVW would have been perfect. It's a drive. I could have driven home every now and then instead of having, a 3-hour flight. And the other important part for me was Cornette was there. So I knew Cornette would help me, whatever.
Figure it out.
Yeah. And we were like, no, we want to build Puerto Rico as like another farm system with Savio Vega. So we need you to go there and help kickstart that. Fine. When I realized it was over, when I started getting feelings was at first, when I went down, it was every other week, they would allow me to fly home. And the office paid for me to fly home. And then it turned into, oh, well, if you want to go home, it's on your own. You're on your own bill. Now, meanwhile, when they sent us to Puerto Rico, we got no extra money. So now Elo and I had to rent an apartment. Plus, I had mortgage and bills in New Jersey that had to be paid. So I'm living, the same money at two different things. And back then, I didn't have a big, giant guaranteed contract. It's not like, I had a big deal. I had guaranteed money, but it wasn't huge. And so once they started saying that, I was like, what's going on? And then it turned into, oh, if you want to go home, you got to get permission from Savio. And I'm like, why do I have to get permission to go home?
Yeah.
This is dumb on days off. So then I went back up to Philly. They were doing TV. They were doing Raw in Philly. And I asked them, like, can I come up, do a dark match or something? And I can, be home, but I can come there. And they were like, yeah, absolutely. So I had a dark match, and it was perfect because it was with an indie guy who I knew for years. So I knew I was going to have a good match. And I'm getting ready to go out, and Shane walked by, Shane McMahon, and he said, hey, he goes, show us why we don't send you back to Puerto Rico. Show us why you need to stay here with us instead of going back to Puerto Rico, except to get your stuff. So I was like, perfect. Like, this is what I need. Like, I know I can show them. Like, I went out and we start the match, second spot. He hurts his back. And I went, oh. So I literally hoisted him up, hit him with my finish, and get in the back. And Shane was standing right there. And Shane goes, what happened? I go, he got hurt. He's like, what do you mean he's hurt? I go, I don't know. I said he was crying. His back was hurt. So he couldn't go. So we had to end the match. And he's like, well, that's a shame. And he walked away. And I went, that's a shame. Like, crap, what does that mean? And then the next night they were doing TV in Baltimore, taping SmackDown in Baltimore. And I went down to Baltimore and they put the run sheet up. I thought, sure, I'd have a dark match again. No dark match. And I was obviously concerned. I went into JR and I said, I'm just wondering, why am I not being given an opportunity to do a dark match again? And he looked at me and he goes, Chaz, he goes, I'll be honest with you. He goes, you're in great shape. You're a great worker. He goes, creative doesn't know what to do with you. They don't know who Chaz is. And I looked at him. I said, no shit. He goes, what do you mean no shit? I go, I don't know who Chaz is either. I'm like, he goes, we just gave you like 4 months in Puerto Rico to figure it out. And I'm like, but I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, but I said, if they don't know who Chaz is, I go, then let me come back as Mosh. Like, I've grown my hair out. My hair at this point, because I would put sun in my hair when I was running on the beach. It was like 4 different colors. I'm like, let me come back as Mosh. Let me evolve. We can now evolve Mosh. And he goes, if you can spin that to creative, that's fine. Because now this was the end of August and August of 01. And he said to me, he goes, if you can come up with an idea that creative says yes, he goes, we'll re-sign you. But as of right now, you're not getting re-signed in January. And I went, okay. So that point there is when I kind of knew, like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. And I went and found Bruce, and because Bruce and I felt more comfortable talking to Bruce than I did JR. And Bruce was like, listen, just watch the program. He goes, come up with some ideas. He goes, fax them into us, send them in. He goes, and we'll see what happens. So that's what I did. I went home and I would watch and I would come up with ideas and I would send them in. And it was nothing at first. And then all of a sudden I sent in this idea. That's when Crash Holly was doing the 24/7. He was always, belt was always on the line. And I pitched this thing of Crash sleeping and me going over and pinning him very quietly. Have a ref, 1, 2, 3. I grab the belt and run off. Crash wakes up. He's like, where's my belt? Like, what happened? Blah, 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 blah. I saw it unfold on TV, but it was with Jerry Briscoe doing it.
Wow.
I went, ugh. And then that's right when also the Vince bought WCW and Diamond Dallas Page was doing his positive thinking, positive thoughts, and with the big cheesy smile, I threw in an idea that he needs like the evil guy behind him, as he's the most positive one. He needs someone behind him who's got the big smile too, but is doing all the dirty work for him. He's doing all the dirty work. He's doing the cheating. He's doing this, and DDP's acting like he's the innocent, positive one. And next thing you know, there was Christian right next to DDP.
Yeah,
what I pitched, and I went, oh, so my next idea I sent in was maybe you should hire me as a writer. Hire me to put me on a creative team. I got no response to that one. So that's the point there where I knew, at least with WWF, I wasn't getting re-signed unless
they liked your ideas, but they didn't know who Chaz was, and it seemed like also the timing.
Yeah, they liked the ideas, just not for me. They liked them for other people.
Yeah. And also, like, to that point of DDP, like, it was after WCW closed the doors and there was this influx of talent that was coming in that they didn't know what to do with them.
Right.
So it's like, it was a time for sure. Hey, yo, it's your boy, the Wrestling Classic, Justin here, and I'm here to tell you guys about one of wrestling's best-kept secrets for merchandise, officially licensed WWE and NXT merchandise, 500level.com. Check them out, 500level.com. Get officially licensed merchandise for the WWE, NXT, UFC, MLB, NBA, NHL. They got it all. If you join the Partnership Point program as a loyal customer, you will get discounts down the road. You can find merchandise for some of your favorite NXT stars that you can't find anywhere else. Javon Evans, Kalani Jordan, Carmen Petrovic, Lola Vice, Trick Williams. They got merchandise for everybody on NXT. You got OG shirts like this NWO shirt. You got big stars like the Queen Charlotte Flair. You get new designs like this new design for Lita. You get designs I helped out with, like this design for Dakota Kai, which I was a part of creating when Dakota didn't have those many shirts going on. You can get, like I said, NXT superstars like Carmen Petrovic and many others. You can get OGs like the none other than the Hot Rod, Roddy Piper. You can get CM Punk, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, anybody you want. Sami Zayn's 500level.com. Check them out. You can even get the bad guy, Razor Ramon. You get your OG, like I said, logo shirts, NWO, WWF, Survivor Series, Raw's War. 500level.com. Check them out. Join the partnership program. Some of the best quality shirts, premium quality, regular quality. Some of the best product you will find out there, officially licensed WWE, NXT merchandise, and OG Legend stuff. 500level.com. Check them out. Keep doing the thing. We'll see you all later. Ooh. After WWE, you had a short run in Ring of Honor with Glenn again. How was your time in Ring of Honor?
It was short. It was good, and then it ended quickly, and that all stemmed with Cornette also. So we were doing an indie. Glenn had blown up to probably like 310 pounds, and he moved down to Florida finally, and he came to a show, and he was like, he wasn't on the show, but I was doing a show locally, and he came, and he was like, look, we need to start doing matches again. I'm like, dude, you can barely walk, you can barely get into the ring, like you need to lose weight. So he lost 100 pounds, and we were on a show. And Cornette was there, and it was Wrestlemania was down in Miami, and Cornette was in town doing a show with us, and we asked him, we're like, hey, can you watch the match? Which was nerve-wracking because Cornette's that one person. Don't ask him the question if you don't want the real answer, because he doesn't sugarcoat anything. And we went out there, we had a match, and we came in the back, and he goes, boys, come with me. We're like, oh shit. Maybe we shouldn't have asked him to watch this match. He pulls us aside and he goes, you want my honest opinion, right? And we're like, Jimmy, we know how you are. It's the only way you're going to be. He goes, that looked like 1997. He goes, that was amazing. And at this point, he was booking for Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And, like 3 weeks later, he called us up. He goes, all right, I have this idea. And the idea was to bring us in as the Guardians of Truth with Truth Martini with masks on. And we started laughing. And he goes, what's so funny? I go, you hired us in Smoky Mountain. You told us to get rid of the mask. Now you want to bring us in the Ring of Honor under
masks on. Yeah.
Funny. And he said, well, he goes, I want you to cover the tattoos. He goes, I want you to be totally covered. He goes, in case it doesn't work, he goes, I want to try to protect the headbanger identity and gimmick as much as possible. So we were like, okay. So we went out, did the Guardians of Truth against the Briscoes. And that first opening spot, we hit the ropes and the ropes broke. But we were able to pull off a good, they're professionals. Like everyone, all four of us knew how to work. So we still had a good match with them. And then they brought us back for another spot. And then that's when they let us take the masks off and reveal that we were the Headbangers. And then we had a match with the Briscoes on TV and like an enhancement match. And then we had the match with the Briscoes. The night we had the match with the Briscoes, it went really, really well. We had a good match. Of course, they went over. And something happened, and Cornette went ballistic and like was throwing shit around like he does. And he left. He said he quit and he walked out. At that point, we never heard from anybody at Ring of Honor again. So it was Cornette.
Oh, wow.
And they told us, like, hey, we're going to bring you guys back. Like, we're going to start a program with the Briscoes, which we were excited about. Yeah, but then once Cornette left, like, nobody even had the balls or not even balls isn't the right word, the professionalism to even, like, answer an email, a phone call, text, anything to, like, talk to us. And
yeah.
So it was fun. It was short. It kind of threw us back on the map a little bit to get other bookings elsewhere. But yeah, again, that was more help from Cornette.
How did the 2016 return happen with the WWE? 20 years after 1996, you guys are back. Like, I guess a twofold question. Like, how did that happen? And also, like, were you surprised that the fans remembered? Like, whoa, like the Headbangers. Like,
yes, as far as remembering, 100% yes. Because, it had been 15 years since I've been on TV and 16 years since the Headbangers were. And so what happened was, over all the years of doing indie shows, every time WWE would come into town, I would reach out to Hunter and say, hey, is there any way I could do a show? Can I do a show? Listen, dark match or whatever, for the sole reason of my son at this point in 2016, he was 12. So he had seen me do, I don't know, 1,000 indie shows, because anything down here that I could bring him to, I would bring him. And I wanted him one last time, just one time I wanted him to see me in a WWE ring. That's all I wanted, whether it was live, in person, or on TV. That's all I wanted. I'm like, I can retire after that. I just want him to see me in that. Because he didn't understand until literally recently. He's 21 now. He didn't understand until recently, like, to the level that I was at before. And I just wanted him to see that. So what would happen is again, I would reach out to Hunter. He would say no. Then I would see Road Dogg on indie shows, and I would tell Road Dogg, I'm like, listen, can you talk to Hunter? Like, just one match. Like, and they kept saying no. So it was Road Dogg who actually, I got a text, and it said, hey, Chaz, it's Road Dogg. Are you and Glenn available on whatever date it was to do Tuesday Night SmackDown? It was in Foxwoods Casino or something in New England.
yeah.
And I'm like, I text back, I go, oh, okay, yeah, that's funny. Nice rib. And literally calls me right back. He's like, no, I'm not. He goes, it's really me. He goes, I'm not kidding. Like, we have this storyline, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm not going to say no. 2 days later, he sends me a text. It's not going to happen next week. You got to have full blood work done. If you're not under contract full time, you got to have full blood work done to work there. But because I'm going to try to hold the storyline off another week, to make sure to get you guys there. I'm like, hey, at this point I went, all right, it's not happening. I'm like, thank you. Appreciate you thinking of us. Like, whatever. I watched SmackDown that week. I wasn't really watching a lot. And I watched SmackDown just to kind of see the storyline, to see where we fit in. I had no clue. Couldn't see where we'd fit in. And then waited Wednesday, nothing. Thursday, nothing. Friday, nothing. And then it was like 5:30 on Friday evening. I get a phone call. It's a blocked number, and I answer it. It's Howard Finkel. He's like, Chaz Warrington, Howard Finkel from World Wrestling Entertainment. And I'm like, Howard, what's up? He's like, you and Glenn are needed in Dallas on Tuesday. He goes, I just need your information, travel, flight book. And he went through everything. And that's how it got booked. And once we got there, it's amazing. The whole thing.
How much had it changed since you were last there when you were there? Were you like, well, this is a whole different operation, or?
It changed. I would have never known. Totally different. Because, back then we'd sit there and we play cards, we'd play dominoes. Guys were ribbing and goofing around. We got there, guys are playing video games. It was very quiet. Everyone kind of kept to themselves. And it was kind of awkward. And then as we're walking down the hallway, back then it was female wrestlers, female locker room, male locker room. And now we're walking in and it's like extras locker room, WWE Superstar locker room. And we're like, shit, which locker room do we go to? Do we go into the extras? Do we go into this locker room? And I'll never forget it was Matt Cardona. He popped us out. He's like, shit, Headbangers are here. He's like, come on in here. He goes, you guys are in here with us. And literally, like, he pulled us in and welcomed us to the locker room. And then the other thing I wanted to do was just stay low. Again, introverted side of me wanted to stay low and be quiet. And I went into catering. And all I was trying to do was find someone I knew. Because the great part is production crew, TV guys, most of the referees, Kyoto, Chimmel, the announcers, they were still there. So we ran into them, but I just wanted to find someone and sit down and kind of get out of the way. And the timing of this person is perfect right now. But we're standing there and all of a sudden locked eyes across the room with John Cena. Yeah. And Cena stood up and he was like, Headbangers. And he came across the room, gave us hugs. He's like, so glad you guys are here. I heard you were coming. I'm super excited. Happy you guys are here. He's like, come over, grab a plate, sit down and talk to me because I want to catch up with you guys. Because the only other time we had met Cena before when he was working as the prototype in California. We did an indie show and he was there. So we were never there during the Cena era. So that was amazing. And then the greatest part of it for me was, again, all I wanted was my son to see me one time in the ring. My wife at the time had taken her phone and set her phone up behind him where I could see the TV and I could see his reaction. So she taped him watching me. So when I got back to the hotel that night, it was in my text messages.
That's awesome.
Videoed him watching me. And the really coolest part was I had said to him, what do you want me to do for you when I go down to the ring or I'm in the ring that it's just for you? No one else knows about it but you and I. And we kind of went over a couple things. I'm like, do you want me to do the monkey face? And he goes, no, the monkey face I used to do to my niece. So when my niece would watch, she knew the monkey face was for her. And he was like, no, because that's for Amy. He goes, I want you to do the dab. And I go, I hate the dab. That's when Cam knew the dab. I'm like, I hate the dab. I think it's stupid. He goes, I know. That's why I want you to do it. And I went, fine. So the timing was perfect when I rolled into the ring and I went to the corner I always go to. The cameras were right. And I didn't ask the camera guys to catch it. I didn't ask for anything, but they caught it. And in the video of my son, you could see him start laughing and he screams and he turns his head and he's like wiping his eyes. And I'm like, did you tear up there? He's like, no, it was the ceiling fan. I had wind in my eye. Blah, blah, blah. But being able to watch that back, watching him watch me is probably one of the greatest moments I've ever had in my career.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's exactly what you wanted. You got to see. And I feel like that happens with a lot of wrestlers that, when you're a wrestler, a lot of the wrestlers in the 90s specifically were wrestlers and some of them didn't end up having children until after they kind of slowed down with the wrestling stuff. So, we've seen Goldberg come back because he wanted his kid to see him. We've seen a lot of the women come back because they want their kids to see them. Right. And it's cool that you got to have that moment. And, people remember the Headbangers. Did you see Hunter at all during this time after all the no's?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How was his reaction when he finally saw you and he's like, oh, hey, like.
Oh no, he always would reply. I mean, he always replied. It's
No,
he
always, yeah.
He always replied, and it was always an insurance thing. Oh, an insurance thing. I'm like, listen, you bring extras in all the time. Like, I'll sign a waiver. Like,
yeah.
It didn't make sense then. So the timing wasn't then. I'm a big believer in everything happens for a reason. And the reason it happened then, it was meant to be. And then, they brought us back. And then we made Rhino and Heath bleed. And as we left, we used to get mad at guys that came in and then hurt our friends.
Yeah.
People we work with, like, oh, this asshole came in and he hurt so-and-so. And we're driving back, we start laughing. And I'm like, so we're those guys now that came in and made two of the guys on the main roster bleed. Rhino got 8 stitches up here. But they called us back a couple weeks later and we're like, oh, cool. They're bringing us back. Like, we're like, all right, we're not bringing us back again after that.
And you guys weren't expecting a long run. You guys were just enjoying the ride while you guys were on it, I suppose.
I was just happy to, I was happy.
I actually had Rhino on the show and we talked about that too. I forgot about that. Rhino did talk about that match, and like one of his favorite pictures of him and Heath is the fact that they're both bloody and beat up and look like they just went to a war and they're holding up the tag titles, but it was against the Headbangers.
It's awesome too, because when you watch that video, it's all in color, and then as soon as the blood happens, it goes to black and white. The rest of the matches in black and white because of the blood. And
he said that the pictures are usually in black and white, and it's just like a super cool visual of him and Heath. And it's cool because you got to work with Rhino and Heath. You got to work with the Usos, which, to this modern generation might go down as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. You guys didn't just get brought in for a dark match or like a nostalgia pop. You guys were part of the tag team title tournament because they introduced new tag titles for SmackDown after a draft. Like, they really had you guys involved, and I thought that was super cool. And like, once again, I watched you guys when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. Fast forward 2016, I'm like in my 20s. I'm like, oh, the Headbangers, like, this is awesome. Like,
yeah, it was cool. We got a huge pop when we came out, which we didn't expect. And then it was like they remembered us. And then the reactions we got on social media was amazing. And then from there, we started getting more bookings on the independents, which obviously helps out also. But yeah, it was great. And again, like I said, my son, being able to watch my son watch me, what I did is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Oh, and then obviously you and Glenn have been tag teaming ever since then, and you guys have been working the independents. But I looked when I was doing research, I saw on social media that you guys have picked a date and a time to have a retirement match as a team. That's next July, if I'm correct.
July of 26. It's July 23rd, 2016. We're doing it with we wanted to
2026.
2026. Yes.
She's a 2016. Yeah. We're going back in time. Yeah.
We're on that 10-year retirement tour.
It started then. Yeah. Okay.
July 23rd, 2026. We're doing it in conjunction with Tommy Fierro and his ISPW. We're doing it in New Jersey, Wildwood Convention Center. New Jersey is where we grew up. New Jersey is where we started. And it's going to be great. And it's just people keep asking, like, oh, you can keep going. You guys look great. And I'm like, it's just time. I've always said I'll keep doing it as long as people pay me what I want and as long as I'm having fun. People are still paying us what we want. It's just a matter of the fun in the ring is dying down. And the other side for me personally is I go up to the Performance Center for WWE in Orlando and I do guest coaching. And I did a match about a week and a half before I was going up. Guy dropped me wrong. He dropped me high on my like back of my neck, and I wasn't hurt. I felt fine, but I laid there going, "Why am I doing this? Like, these guys really don't know what they're doing. Like, why are you going to risk getting hurt when you have all this other good stuff going on?" At that point, that's when I thought about it. Glenn and I talked. I'm like, I think it's time we start winding down. And so we're going up. We're going to with ISPW with Tommy Fierro. I'm excited about it. Tommy's a great guy. I've known Tommy my entire career, and I know Tommy's going to make it like really great and special for us.
Do you guys have any idea who your opponents are going to be yet, or is it still up in the air? We obviously got a ton of time. July's a while away, but is it kind of so you can build up something?
Tommy and I were throwing some things around. I actually wanted to do it with Matt Cardona and Brian Myers. I wanted it to be them, but they have, and I talked to them about it before, and they were all in. So that's just like that would be fun. Matt and Brian are two guys that watched us as kids, and then now we're friends. And then to be able to have that with them would be really cool. That'd be really special. But they have Comic-Con in San Diego to push their their figure line. So they brought them there and pushed their toy line to come wrestle us. So
fair enough. So we'll see what happens. We'll see who it is. We'll see how it plays out. You're one of the stories of someone that created a life after wrestling in terms of work and in terms of being a dad. There was none of that, burnout, crash out, wrestling forever, living the life of drugs and not being able to let go. Like you're in a way a success story of like, hey, I can still wrestle, but I've created a life outside of wrestling too. Do you take pride in that?
Yes, 100%. Wrestling turned into. I mean, it took me a while to get over the fact that wrestling was done with me. It took me time.
But a lot of people in the wrestling business will say wrestling was their first real love.
Yeah, it's funny because I that was like my first love, and like you said, but when they were done with me, I was bitter. I was bitter with the way it ended. I didn't look. Like I said earlier, I never looked at wrestling as a business. After I realized it was just a business of what happened, I was able to get over it a little bit more, but I didn't watch a lot. I couldn't watch it. Like a lot, I'd be like, I'm better than that guy. Why am I not there? Like I was healthy and bitter about it, but I kind of got over it. And then I created, a whole different life doing different things. I'm philanthropic with the company I work with, and I'm very involved with the community, which I love. I think it's amazing. And then going back, it's been almost a year and a half now that I've been going up to the Performance Center and working with the NXT and the Evolve kids up there for WWE. That kind of made me almost fall in love with it all over again, because it's if I didn't become a professional wrestler, I most likely would have ended up being a teacher. I would have thought I probably would have been like a PE teacher, but I would have coached, wrestling, baseball, soccer. I would have coached something. And I love helping people. I love helping them, guiding them, and then watching them go out and perform and do it and come in the back and go, wow, that really worked, or watching the light bulb go off. But it's made me fall in love with the business all over again. And then writing the book. Writing the book was therapeutic, because the more I started writing, the more I started remembering, and then the more I started appreciating it of what I did. And because at the time you're in the middle of it, at least for me, I didn't realize obviously I knew what I was doing, but I didn't realize to the magnitude that it was. Yeah, you're at WrestleMania. Yeah, you're in front of the 80,000 people. Yes, you're selling action figures. You got T-shirts. You got fans all over the place. You can't go out to eat, but you don't realize it, because to me it was a job. But writing the book was therapeutic, because it got me to appreciate what I did. It got me to start falling back in love with wrestling again. And then, like I said, going up to the Performance Center in Orlando is one of the greatest things for me now, because I just love helping, guiding, coaching, and then they have me help produce matches, and just watching this new generation take off and seeing the athleticism of these kids at the Performance Center. I mean, wrestling's in a good spot right now, and it's just going to get better and better.
I think it's allowed you to still be involved, but not have to do it in a way that works perfectly for you. Like you can still show your love of wrestling, but you also have your other life. But it's like when you need that wrestling adrenaline, it's like, oh, I get to go to the PC. I get to help out. That's where I get that from. 2 questions based off of that, and then we'll wrap this up with another 2 questions. Is there anyone at the PC that's really standing out to you that you maybe are like, that's someone I could really get behind?
Miles Bourne is amazing. I mean, the guy, the people we see on NXT, they're all amazing. They're
all fantastic, but if you could be a fan for a second, who would you be like, I'm a fan of this person?
Miles, I love. Kendall Gray, Laney Reed. I think they're amazing. Also, there's some guys on Evolve. You have I'm trying to think their name. I can see their faces and their names are just going away, because I know that Chase, right? Harley's his wrestling name. So I like
that's what I was about to say. Sometimes you know their real names and you're like, oh, I don't even know their wrestling.
Yeah, I forget to But you got Hank and Tank. I love Hank and Tank. I think they're so Hank and Tank to me remind me of Glenn and I a lot.
I was about to say, now that you say that, they give me that fun-loving headbanger-esque vibe.
So Glenn and I turned into the appearance kings. Like every appearance because people would come see us. The New Day turned into that. And that's I see Hank and Tank being the new day, new version of New Day of not needing tons of titles, even though New Day's had tons of titles, but those are guys that are going to get over and stay over. Obafemi's going to be, he's just a monster. He's a beast. You have, trying to think, what's his name? He's the monster. He's the monster. He just won the speed title.
Oh my God. I know what you're talking about. He won LFG, or he's on LFG.
Yeah.
I forget his name too, but I know what you're talking about.
Shiloh Hill's going to be, Shiloh's just starting to come out on NXT, and the personality you're seeing in the videos he's doing, the vignettes he's doing, that's Shiloh. Like, there's so many guys like Luca. He was with Stax and Tony D'Angelo. Like
he was,
Tony's great. There's so many. Everyone's talking about Javon Evans, but there's just so many guys up there. And when I walk in, the reaction, is great. Serena is awesome. She was on LFG. It's just so many that it's crazy.
And the second part of what I want to say about what you talked about writing the book is it's something I've had to teach myself, and it's hard when you're in it, is like really appreciating the journey while you're on the journey. I think that's what the book lets you look back at your journey and appreciate it now, because like it's a dangerous trap to reflect sometimes, because then you rest on your laurels and you should always be like, what's next? What's my next goal? But I've learned to like, okay, maybe there are some days that you can reflect on what you've already done, because it's really cool. And like you were on WrestleMania, you were in there during the Attitude Era, you were there with big names, you came back 2016, and like you had a hell of a wrestling career. Like that's like no one can take that away from you. Like and that's gonna lead into my last question, but last two questions then. If there is one match that you could show 10-year-old Chaz used to wake up and watch Saturday morning wrestling all the time of your own, what match would you show them?
Oh boy. One of my favorites to show when people ask actually is a match we had with the Hardys. And this was before the Hardys were signed. It was on Monday Night Raw. The only negative with it is if you go and you look it up, there's a promo with the Nation of Domination where they have the big screen and we have the little screen.
But
that's right when we started getting like more of a positive reaction from the crowd. It was just a good, it was a little bit of back and forth. Matt and Jeff took some crazy freaking bumps for us. They put us over like $1 million. That's one. I have some singles matches. It's so hard to because each one has its own little unique thing. Like I'd love to say, obviously WrestleMania 13 or Ground Zero, but those are tough too because there were four-way matches. It was 14.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different. But yeah,
I feel like your younger self would also enjoy seeing you guys win the tag titles. I think that's like something. That would like they don't even need to know anything else. If you could show them one match, you won the tag titles. Like
I still like watching. I actually have the 40 seconds saved on my phone of Davey Boy Glenn's foot all the way to us. Like that's saved on my phone when people are like, "Oh, you were at a restaurant?" I'm like, "Yeah, here, watch this." And I'm like, "That's me winning the tag title."
That's awesome. And last but not least, I always wrap it up with this. So I want to ask you, and it kind of relates to the last question. It also relates to the journey. And like once again, everybody, if you want, you can grab the book Beneath the Skirt: The Wild Journey from a Wallflower to a Wild Wrestling Journey. Sorry, I butchered it there for a second, but. Last but not least, do you feel like you've made your younger self proud? Like if you were to talk to your younger self, do you feel like you accomplished exactly what 10 or 11-year-old Chaz wanted to accomplish, the kid from New Jersey?
I'd have to say yes, I guess, because I used to joke around with my friends when we'd go over to the Spectrum in Philly to watch wrestling. I would joke around and go, "Oh, one day you're going to see me in that ring." But it was like a joke. Yeah. And then when I went down to the Monster Factory and I started wrestling, like I never expected it to get. I never expected to go anywhere. It was one of those things where I'm like, "Oh, this would be cool to try. Let me try it out and see where it goes." So yeah, because I didn't expect it, and I think when with where I was as a kid, I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. Where I was as a kid, like I did stupid stuff and it was to get any kind of attention, but it was more negative attention. I did stupid stuff. So for me to learn from that and grow and become the father, and I hate saying I'm not putting myself over as a dad, but my son is 21. He's an amazing kid. He's about to graduate college. He's doing great things at college. He's got his own e-commerce companies going. Like he's such an amazing kid, and he's like one of my best friends. I think because of the way he's turned out, I'd have to say, yeah. My dad wasn't always around, and I'm trying to sugarcoat this part. I'm not a sugarcoater, so this is tough. When things would happen with my son, I would think back and I go, what would my dad do? And I do the opposite, and it worked really well. So I broke the
cycle.
No,
I completely understand. I get it. I'm out here breaking the cycle as much as I can too, a little bit in terms of like alcoholism and whatnot. So I get it. So I know that's amazing. I'm glad, like when it's not even like now that you said all that, like it's not even just your wrestling career that your younger self will be proud of. It's the man you've become and the father you've become, which is
100%.
even more important, even more honorable. So I appreciate it. Thank you for spending this time with me. I also did not expect us to go this long, but honestly, I was enjoying each and every story that I wanted you to keep going because I was reliving my childhood, talking to you and hearing these stories about everybody I grew up watching. I hope everybody checks out the book. Follow Chaz on social media, guys. I will tag everything about his social media below. I'll even tag a link to buy the book below.
Everything on my social media is Chaz Mosh, and I think that's the great part about the book. Like you as a fan growing up got to watch me on TV, and you saw that story unfold. The book tells you the behind-the-scenes story of how that unfolded, what I was thinking, what I was going through, the insecurities of each of all that stuff that I kind of brought up during this. So that's what the cool part about the book. And the more people I kind of was giving the book to who didn't really know me back then or didn't know nothing about my wrestling career are like, wow, this is amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's why I like reading the autobiographies because it makes you relate to the person more and you're kind of like, oh, I appreciate them more too. But that's also why I love doing these interviews. I've interviewed you, I've interviewed Rhino, D'Lo, Godfather, Adam Bomb. I interviewed him, and it's like Alex Wright. And I interview these people that some, they're not the Stone Colds of the world, but I'm like, they have such cool stories. They're such like memorable people of my childhood that like I want to hear their stories because we've seen the millions of documentaries on the NWO and Stone Cold and Triple. I'm like, I want to hear about these guys because these guys are great. So it was a pleasure. And I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story. And I hope everybody checks out the book. Like I said, the link, I'll put it below. You guys go get the book. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I'll see you guys all down the road. Keep doing the thing.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.